Yeah. Okay, the Jentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation. Knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Jentry. The Jentry Podcast. The Jentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello, and welcome to the Jentry Podcast. We have an incredible guest. This person I was very excited to be interviewing. Very few people you meet, they just get it. So this is Michael T. Paulhus. He is the town manager of Plainville, Connecticut. But more importantly than that, he is a husband. He is a graduate of the University of Connecticut, where I actually got my first college football offer. So I'm really partial to UConn. And also, he is a purveyor of the 4-day work week. Ladies and gentlemen, I did not stutter. I did not make a mistake. That is correct. The 4-day work week. Michael, we appreciate you having yourself, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. That's great to be with you.
I appreciate it. Now, one thing I didn't put is you're also were a member of the Peace Corps. You've had quite a differentiated background. Could you kind of speak to how you became a town manager? I think you got started, at least with Plainville, in August of 2022. So how do you go from Peace Corps to Plainville? Could you walk us through?
Sure.
Please?
Yeah. It's a long route, and it's sort of public services in my blood because of that experience I had in the Peace Corps. So I came out of college, Blackburn College, with a degree in biology. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but a friend had told me about the Peace Corps, so I applied because I thought that might open some doors for me, and it certainly did. It was a life-altering experience, really. It was a life-changing experience. So I served as a fisheries volunteer in Tanzania, in East Africa, from 1989 to 91. And so I had to go to stateside to South Carolina to learn about aquaculture and fish farming before I went. So that was 10 weeks of intense training, and then service into country in Tanzania, in the northern region, up by the Kenyan border. And it's just country, beautiful country. Learned Swahili, which was kind of unusual, and didn't really learn it well, but enough to get by. And I did that. And then my service ended too short because of the first Gulf War. There were some implications, and the ambassador shut the program down. So I found myself in a matter of 48 hours on a plane on my way back to the States, and I had no idea what I was going to do. Went back to school because another member on the plane with me was saying she was going back to Ohio University for her degree, master's degree, and they were giving out scholarships. So I said, that sounds pretty good. And so I went and got a master's in international affairs from Ohio University. And it was still in my blood to get back and do international development work. I was thinking, Save the Children, CARE, and all of these other organizations, and Save the Children, UNICEF, you name it. And it didn't work out for me. So I was at home in Connecticut and found myself going back to school at UConn for an MPA. And I got that. And halfway through that, a position opened up in local government in the town I was living in the town of Wyndham. And so that was a great opportunity for me at the ground level, because it was in my blood at that point in terms of giving back and working after the Peace Corps experience. And I just felt like, whether it was the Peace Corps or local government, just doing something for your community, really being entrenched and involved, fully immersed, as the Peace Corps likes to say, in that. And it just worked out that I became the executive administrator for the first selectman in the town of Wyndham. And I did that for 7 years, and then became the first selectman in town. So total span of 13 years in Wyndham, and then ended up in North Brantford for 9 years. And then this position opened up in 2022. So I took a shot at it and came here. And that's sort of my short version of my tale of how I got from the Peace Corps to Plainville, and loving every minute of a local government. It's so rewarding, so challenging. And as you know, you talk about it in your podcast, you meet with members that are doing some great things around the country. And I just hope to be, part of that and in a special way right here locally in Plainville.
That's incredible, Mike. The through line there is always wanting to serve. And I feel like, especially the people that I bring on my podcast, that is something that you see no matter where their road takes, that through line of always wanting to serve. And those are the people that resonate with me too. I guess I got to shout out Ohio University too. I got one of my college football scholarships from Ohio too, but that's incredible. And in your role now, what have you seen has been your goals, and not more importantly, but also like the strategic goals of Plainville? Could you kind of speak to those?
Sure. Yeah. Plainville is a very unique town, centrally located just outside of Hartford, about 15 miles west of Hartford. We're the small little fish in a big pond, so to speak, with Hartford, but directly around us, New Britain, Bristol, Armington, Southington, all larger towns. We're 9 square miles. We're a very small, urban center, if you will. Very small town, population 17,000. Connecticut, as you may know, because I know you're good at research and you do your homework, that's 169 towns in Connecticut. And so we're all competing, no county form of government, all just, trying to do our thing. And time to time we share resources, but really we focus on the quality of life here and economic development, quality of life, great public school systems, great secondary education, great medical facilities and so forth. Connecticut's just packed everything. And halfway between Boston and New York, it's sort of the best of both worlds. And central to that is Plainville, and just a real, blue collar type of community that gets it. GE was centered here, headquartered here for a number of years. And we have other industry around us. We're continuing to work on economic development from a retention and expansion standpoint. So, job opportunities, job creation, and so forth. Because again, 69 towns, we're all kind of competing against, looking for those manufacturers, bringing manufacturing back, looking for other, businesses, mom and pop, retail, you name it, but just growing the grand list and continuing to keep the level or quality of life that we expect here, which is great. So there's a lot that goes into that, but a lot of the focus is around economic development.
That's very important. And I love that that's where you and Plainville actually focus on that quality of life. That's something that is very interesting to me, and how people address that quality of life. And when I think of quality of life, I think of things like workforce development. I have a 7-month-old, childcare, the ability to live from a single adult fresh out of college, looking for maybe their first job, through building a family. And then, you want the white picket fence, the 1.5 kids, and the dog and the house. And then on the other side of that, it becomes maybe you and your wife are retiring. So how do you kind of balance that effort of quality of life, knowing that people often go through different stages in their lives? Like how do you guys kind of think about that?
Well, great question. Yeah. And I think you get it, Jonathan. It's just, there's so many different elements to it. Some people will look at education, and obviously, low crime. Obviously, you want a livable town or community you're in with amenities, that you have parks and recreation, but, you have access to great paying jobs and so forth. So, there's a whole mix to it. So I think it's really in the strategic planning and building the team that carries that out. Enough, there's a great community in terms of volunteers that, serve on boards and commissions. I've got a great town council. They get it. They understand it because they support the investment in schools. In fact, we're going through a $61 million renovation of our middle school. It's the last in the line of a 10-year process for investment in all of the schools. This is the last one. And then we'll revisit that. We'll start again and say, because, after a 10-year process, because schools have a life cycle, right? And you begin to look at that. You look at what, workforce development. Housing is another important piece of that. So we look next door to the municipal center where I am right now. We have a factory, an old factory that's been sitting there for a decade. We've recently teamed up with the state, got environmental remediation funds to clean up the site and transform it into a mixed-use development with housing component to help put foot traffic, if you will, on Main Street, so it is on Main Street. And so, 100 units of housing there with mixed retail use is a great project for downtown, and turning a dirty brown site into a producing site, in terms of being actively revitalized. Things like that from the town's perspective, what our infrastructure looks like in terms of our investment in roads and bridges and so forth. So, just everything you need to do to be attractive to young families. And I think that's the key, in terms of the vibrancy and the turnover. Every community evolves, and new families move in and others retire and move out to different communities and so forth. So it's an evolution, right? And so we try to plan accordingly and do the best we can.
I think you made it very easy to understand, but it is often difficult to kind of weave the different priorities of different groups. But it seems like you're really thoughtful in how you're doing it, and making sure that you're creating spaces for people like young families, revitalizing buildings. Follow-up question to that would be, when you are creating more housing or revitalizing, how are you able to do that without causing things like displacement? That's one thing that I talk to, especially economic developers, who sometimes feel the pressure of the community, that they're always trying to bring in new businesses and they're always trying to bring in the next developer. But what about the current residents? I don't think that's how you are. The first thing you said was quality of life, but I'm just curious to think, like, how do you kind of balance that sometimes?
Great question. And it was with looking at those opportunities. So I'll give you another example. We have a full-time economic development director who does a great job. And it is a team effort in terms of collaborating with developers to talk to them about opportunities. So, it's not just saying, okay, we're building a business and it's only retail. We're going to mix that. Just retail with residential. We're going to mix it in and create those opportunities without having to displace, because housing is so, I would say, acute right now in Connecticut, maybe across the country. But different levels of entry into the housing market, and in terms of rentals and or home ownership. And home ownership is probably being pushed almost out of reach for most people. But we want to make sure that we've got the entry level as well. So we have an old junior high school. So developers approached, has some historical significance. We'd like to preserve it. We'd like to work with that developer to preserve the facade, preserve the building, and then do, again, a combination of retail, business, and housing as well, right? And so they have low to moderate income housing there as well. And when we talk about that, to me, it means, the teacher, the young police officer, the young public works employee, librarian, you name it. Somebody working in our Parks and Rec department, just an opportunity to be able to forge something, right, in terms of and live and work right here. So those are things we start at the beginning on the front end with a developer to say, hey, how can we help you make this work economically, right? So that we reach out to the state. Maybe we have some local incentives combined with the state programs that they have to explore those opportunities to make it so that it's not just strictly housing, it's not just strictly business. It's a combination of a project that is integrated in and mixed use. So that's the angle we're working on.
That's incredible. When you're speaking, it shows that I guess it goes back to that service. You care, and you can hear it.
You have to. I think it's, you got to love the community you're in. You gotta love the work that you do, and I do. I love it because it's never the same thing each day. It's always something new, but it's always engaging, right? So you just pick up the phone, open an email, it's something new, but it's giving back to the community, right? And to see that progress, to see that what you're doing is engaging the community, and to talk about, I'm sure, maybe I'll jump ahead to one of the other questions. Community engagement has changed. The whole process has changed. Where I began my career in 1994, we were at the mercy of the newspaper. It was basically you wanted a public service announcement, or you want to, put out a press release. You had to go through the gatekeepers and say, okay, you wanted to call up a reporter and talk about, trying to get a story out and something. Now we have the ability to be our own media communications corporation, if you will. We're the broadcasters now, and so I think that's an incredible opportunity to engage the community. That's what we're doing effectively in terms of social media and different platforms and podcasts, and, things like this, to get things out there in front of the public and interact and engage with them directly without any intermediaries, without anybody holding us back.
Mike, that is one thing I have seen since meeting you. You are very effective, and I hope everybody listening takes the time to just check out his social media, and at the end we'll make sure that we give it out. The one thing I've learned is you bring a human element to social media, and especially when you speak about like government, even federal down to local, it can feel very sterile, the communication that we typically get as community members. But you bring a human element to it, and I think that's like your superpower. Because while I'm watching, I'm like, okay, I'm interested. It's hard. Like I feel like you're becoming like a brand or a personality. It's like that is part of like your essence, like somebody that cares as a human. And those are the type of people that you want to lead. Like that servant leadership is what it comes through with your communication. And I think it's so important. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's so important to be able to connect with your community. People are yearning for it. And I think so much of the vision of the local community member often has of the government is skewed by a couple loud voices. They may have something negative to say. And when you're telling your own story, I feel like you nip that in the bud. So I just wanted to take that time to commend you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Jonathan. I think you're obviously a great researcher, a student, I guess, in terms of, local government and what we do. And I think, it's just, you have to be authentic. It's okay. We're not perfect. And I think it's okay to apologize. It's okay to say, hey, sorry, we made a mistake and we're trying to learn from it, trying to get better. I mean, that's just, before it was like you had to be politically correct, say the right public statement and so forth. And now we're pretty much unfiltered right now. Obviously there's so parameters, things that we can say, can't say. Obviously, we're not going to violate any confidentiality and so forth. But I think you get it. We're communicating much more effectively because we're communicating directly in snippets. It's not this grandiose, lost in the verbiage of what are they trying to say. And we're just saying it like, hey, listen, we've got storms coming. These are the rules around clearing the sidewalks, no parking ban, this is what we're doing. We've got a new program. We're opening up a new program where we're opening up a new storefront, or we're doing something, starting a renovation project for our middle school. But it's just telling it in a different way, sometimes in telling a story, if you will, and humanizing it to say that this is not just the elected body of officials. Here are the people behind the scenes. I think that's very important, that allows the community to connect. And that's what I think we're after. So I appreciate your comments. We don't always get it right, but we try our best, do our best, communicate. And I think social media has now given us a whole nother tool, if you will, a better tool, and a whole nother path to communicate directly with people, which is great. It's fantastic.
That's incredible. And I think you all do it so well. And it really stuck out to me. I say that genuinely. Shifting gears a little bit, we've definitely spoken about quality of life and retaining and growing local businesses. How do you think about bringing in outside businesses? Like it sounds like you guys are trying to bring in other manufacturing businesses. How do you go about that? What tools do you kind of use to incentivize them from, things like effective communication to tax revenue incentives? So can you walk me through that?
We look at a lot of different opportunities. First and foremost, I think there's a tool that we all have available to us, which is our local Chamber of Commerce. Great resource, most times underutilized, I think. And so from my perspective, we're really engaged with the Chamber because it's a great network and it's more than one town. We happen to have a regional type of Chamber of Commerce, so we're involved in other towns. So there's a lot of resources, and again, sure, we compete with other communities, but we look at the information that's available. We do the mailings. We put ourselves out there as a place to do business. That Plainville, we're kind of hidden in plain sight, right? You can't miss us. And it really, people and companies do the same thing. They do their research, whether you're looking to buy a home or you're looking to set a business location, right? And so we've got a great story most recently to tell you about, and I'll sort of highlight that. A company called Element 119 was headquartered in Cheshire, but manufacturing in Thomaston. So when they started their process, they were looking around. We ranked and got on their radar, and so they came to us to say, "Hey, we're scouting around, we're looking," and we said, "Yeah, we're open to learning more about your organization." And it turned out that it was a really fast-growing manufacturer. They're in the coatings space, if you will. They started with aerospace and got a contract. The owner is an engineer, a chemist, and responded to a proposal from one of Sikorsky, I think, and one of the major defense manufacturers, and won the contract and just grew from there. So they do coatings for airplanes, they do coatings for boats and cars. And so they have grown and outgrew, and we were able to land them here because we had a great facility to show them and a great partnership in terms of what we were bringing to the table to entice them through some tax abatements and so forth. So they promise in terms of workforce development to hit certain benchmarks and so forth, and they're just growing rapidly and expanding. And it's one to keep your eye on, but it's just being competitive, and it doesn't always hit, but we were just fortunate that this one did. Among the many other towns that they were looking at, Plainville scored number one, and it's where they made their decision. They are here now. They are growing rapidly for us to the point where they took a facility that I think 100,000 square feet, looking in the next 3 to 5 years to double that size, And so they looking to make sure they had the right size site that they could, they see their numbers, they know where they're going. And that's a lot of job creation, but there's so much spin-off from a company like that will ramp up to hire, 100, 200, 300 over the next 5, 6, 7 years. So great, fantastic story. And we continue to do, lots of social media, lots of engagement, lots of outreach, but again, using the network that we have in the chamber, and just kind of putting ourselves out there as a great place to do business. So it's not only just a great place to raise your children in terms of, a great community with a great quality of life, but great economic opportunities because we are, close to Hartford. The markets here are great. And there's great talent. So you have to have the workforce development. That's another key component in the success for Connecticut. And we're the beneficiary.
That was a great example. It seemed like that was meant to be, from having the space to having the work talent to believing them and providing them with incentives and them knocking out of the park with that contracts. I think that is a beautiful example, and I appreciate you sharing. I think I heard a little bit of it in your response, but I always like to understand how you in Plainville track how the subsidies are going. It sounded like there was some increments that they had to hit to receive some of that tax abatement. Right. But if you can kind of just speak to like how you guys typically kind of track and just make sure that you guys are utilizing the taxpayers' dollars to the best of your ability and making good investments, which sounds like you clearly did with Element 119.
And so using that example, we'll write into the agreement a certain thresholds that they've got to meet. And so when it comes to employment, certain numbers are one thing, but we also have an opportunity to tailor it. And we often do that. We like a certain percentage hired from Plainville. right? So that's always a great bonus. And they were willing to do that. So we'll, on an annual basis, when they come in to file their exemptions, we'll go through that process to say, okay, and we have a great corporate partnership with them. So we're meeting a lot more than just on an annual basis. But that's what happens behind the scenes. We're doing a lot of meetings with them because they happen to be right next door to our municipally owned airport. So Robertson Airport is the oldest airport in Connecticut, and they happen to be an abutting property owner next to us. And so we've even talked about beyond, the company meeting their metrics in terms of expansion in a certain time frame, the amount of employees and those time frames. We talked to them about just partnerships that we can do. So if they're in the aerospace industry, which they are, which is great, but they also have automotive and revenue streams multiple revenue streams are great for them, great for us, because it helps make sure that they're going to be here long term. And automotive and airplanes have an opportunity that if we build a hangar or some hangar space and they want to do some demonstrations in there in terms of what their product looks like on airplanes and, fly them in, have this, set up where they have a prototype and machines that will paint and coat and do that, that's a great thing. We're open to that, and that's a benefit to them and to their clientele and their potential customers. And it's a benefit to the town because it helps the airport become diversified in its revenue in terms of renting hangar space and so forth. And then it just means more air traffic is better for the airport as well.
I think that's great, from the actual tracking of the metrics that they need to hit, but also like diversifying the ability to gain benefit from both parties, to that like symbiotic relationship that you're creating. I think the best people that are bringing in talent and bringing in businesses, treat them like partners. And when they can partner with Plainville, as you kind of said, that's when the relationship, and that's when, high tides rise all ships. So I love the way you're thinking through that. And I think that's a very effective way to make sure you're gaining that benefit. One thing I would ask, because I definitely have heard a lot of great things. I know it can't be all roses and sunshine, Mike. Are there any challenges that you have from your seat, or anything that you said or that you say, if I could just snap my fingers and change, it would make my day a little bit easier, or Plainville's day a little bit easier?
Well, it's sure there's a couple of things because it is not all roses but I think Connecticut's starting to do they're starting to do things structurally that benefit all of us, all 169 towns. So I give some kudos to the state for beginning to understand where we're at. But so some of the headaches that we're dealing with are in terms of human resources and finding enough talent. And so I'm sure have seen and know that I do talk a lot about local government and the opportunities for careers in local government couldn't be better, especially, at least in Connecticut. Now, across the country, possibly, but certainly in Connecticut, so that you could fill in the blank and write your ticket that, we need engineers, we need building officials, we need accountants to be finance directors, assessors, even librarians, working public works, engineers, you name it, we're looking for it. And so it used to be you had 50, 60, you had people knocking down your door to get into local government in those positions. Now we're competing with everybody else and amongst ourselves and poaching amongst ourselves to bring in talent. And you mentioned the 4-day work week is another tool. It moves the needle for sure in terms of having a 4-day work week, which is great, but it's not everything. And so, I have to compete with the other more affluent towns that could pay more in terms of salary. So I'm just trying to close the gap when you talk about the total compensation package. So HR is probably number one and looking at that, but the state structure in terms of revenue is another issue. And so we rely on state funding that sometimes passes from the feds to the state, and sometimes it's just state funding that we get for education, because education is by far the most expensive proposition in any local government's going to do in terms of educating children, and that's a big budget. And so we rely on the state in terms of getting that funding to help us. And we go through battles in terms of trying to move the allocations higher in terms of meeting the needs. And there's a lot of unfunded mandates. So that's another sort of catchphrase within local government, is the unfunded mandates that come down from the state when they pass new laws and they want us to do things, but there's no money attached to carrying out those items. That becomes a burden for the local governments. I'd say those would be the top three in terms of HR, funding, and unfunded mandates, and just trying to get the mission accomplished and at a quality that residents expect. Those are the challenges we face.
That again sounds difficult, with education being so important to the entire machine almost. I'd say from quality of life, like when I think of where I want to be, I want to make sure that I have good schools so my son can attend, can move up and have a good quality of life. To that quality of life, you want to be in an educated community where there's jobs and that workforce development, need businesses to come to Plainville because there's an educated workforce with workforce development. That seems just is so difficult to have to go to bat and work to get the dollars that you so desperately, everyone so desperately needs to educate their community. So that definitely sounds difficult. Could you maybe give us, I don't know what you're comfortable sharing, and no is a fine answer, just an example of one of those unfunded mandates, just for our listeners to kind of be able to conceptualize it?
Yeah, sure. Environmental comes to mind right away in terms of monitoring our stormwater, and it's called MS4, I think, or MSP4, something like that. It's, in terms of Connecticut's proximity to Long Island Sound and how much discharge in terms of nitrogen ends up in Long Island Sound, that we now have to spend money monitoring that, going out and doing that. There's no money attached to that, but we have to send a report in to set up a mechanism by which to report on that and send to the state. We have things like that, typically around environmental issues, but there are other structural issues within. Connecticut wants to talk about motor vehicle tax, and we have real estate tax, we have motor vehicle tax, and they want a straight across the board rate for motor vehicles. But, again, back to 169 towns, all charging a different mill rate, right? So you buy a, 2024, 2025, Ford Mustang, whatever you're buying, right? And a vehicle is going to have a mill rate in Plainville that's different from a mill rate in, Greenwich or some other eastern part of the state in Woodstock or someplace, So that car values is staying, but what you're paying on it's going to be different. There are some, things that are complex that the state is trying to grapple with and to do, but the education is also, that affects everybody across the state. And so, what we call the educational cost sharing formula, we're all trying to boost it. It's funded, it's underfunded. So it's not exactly an unfunded mandate, but it's underfunded. And so where it should be, at a certain level here, it's down here. And so we constantly have to push the legislature, the governor, to say, listen, let's make some inroads in terms of educational funding. So some would call it still an unfunded mandate. It's funded. It's just underfunded.
Yeah. So that does not sound easy to navigate. Regionalism, and there's that co-opetition. Like, you guys all want the best for Connecticut as a whole, but you kind of got some of the nitty gritty. It's like, if I can buy the car in Greenwich, I may not buy it in Plainville. And how does that hit the bottom line for Plainville? And then with education, it seems like so much is needed, and everyone, is vying for their share, but everybody needs money to educate.
You're right. Just two towns, and I'm not sure where New Britain is, but they're a higher mill rate. So let's just say it's 45 versus 30 Plainville. You can go just literally over the line and live in Plainville and have a lower tax rate in terms of both your real estate and your motor vehicle, your car. And it's just, we're neighbors, but that's this sort of a state issue that we got to grapple with. But there's a whole host of issues, and it's not just Connecticut and Connecticut municipalities, but across the country that local governments have to deal with on a regular basis. And it's just, I think it's all about the service you provide, how well you provide that service, and trying to eliminate the bureaucracy, the red tape, and really service the community at a level that they can afford, right? And so not to price, just overburden them with a tax levy or, your tax burden. Trying to be creative, trying to provide the service, but try to hold the line. And that's the toughest thing that any municipal official is going to do, balance that service versus the cost of doing it. And we don't escape it. We don't escape the cost of doing business. So when, those prices rise, it's not like we have some, magical, we're living in a bubble kind of thing that, okay, gas just went up, or, whatever it is that affects us, gas and other energy costs or anything like that, we got to deal with it as well. And it costs us to do business. But we just try to do the best we can to hold the line whenever we can. And I think taxpayers, residents appreciate that, most of them do, realizing that we're not immune to those economic factors that play into our daily lives. And we do the best we can.
I think sometimes communities don't get the credit for being reasonable. And I think when you communicate as effectively as you all do and as consistently as you all do, you actually gain like some wiggle room to you're going to say great things and have great companies that came in or great examples of business retention. And then there are also going to be some things that you have to say like, hey, this is where we're at. And people can be fairly reasonable, especially when they feel like they're in on what's going on. So I think that's another thing that you guys do so well. Our goal here is, and we always like to say, long-term value for long-term residents. I'd love to hear two things. The first thing will be an initiative that you're proud of that's upcoming, and that can, I don't want you to violate any NDAs, but just anything you're allowed to share about an initiative that you're proud of. And then the final one will be, what's your vision for Plainville in 5 to 10, maybe 20 years from now?
Sure. Yeah, no, we have great opportunity back to development. Again, we're investing in our community through education and the middle school will continue to do that. And roads and our infrastructure, parks and maintenance and so forth, just to preserve our quality of life. But it means growing the grand list. And so that's where we get our revenue in terms of, bringing in new businesses. And so one of the bright, very, very bright spots and is relatively new for us is, even though I said Plainville is 9 square miles. That's it. It's pretty much been developed. There's not many sites that you're going to find, with one exception. There's an exception with right out by our line, our town line with New Britain. It is 100 acres left. That is right by the Interstate 84. A local developer, a big name here locally as well known, came in to talk about a research triangle, if you will, bioscience campus. A bioscience campus was originally maybe 1 million square feet or something like that, a lot of 5 or 6 different buildings. What they realize is that they're going to have to build a housing component in as part of that as well. And so we're very excited about that because, again, it's high-paying research and development jobs that fits well with Yukon and Farmington and the research. And, it's just going to be an economic catalyst, if you will. So we're excited about that and what it could do for the community in terms of economics. But it's in an area that's located just, again, near the New Britain line. So it's not like it is going to have a great impact negatively. It's just, I think, all positive because it, will have job creation and revenue. It will clearly, if it comes to fruition, or when it comes to fruition and all fully built out, will easily be in the top 3 highest taxpayers as a project. That is significant. That's just in terms of the real estate, not to mention the job creation that would have. And so we're excited about that. So the legacy and the vision is in terms of, again, just trying to maintain and preserve the quality of life, that this is just a great community, that we're trying to attract young families. And, and again, also the work we're doing in social media, just to, I think you mentioned it along the way, almost branding the town, which is, if you think about it, the community that has a brand, and we're just trying to tell that story, that it's a great place to live, work, and play. And so I hope that's the legacy, along with amenities, which we're working on a bike path. And believe it or not, this is an interesting fact. the East Coast Greenway that'll run from Maine all the way down to Florida, I believe. Connecticut, getting through Connecticut, we're the last piece, we're the last link in the East Coast Greenway to connect. And so we're working on that. There's 3 phases here in town. We've got 1 and 2 designed. We're looking at the 3rd phase, which is the most difficult, which is pointing, but you can't see, but it's right out my window here in downtown, and trying to connect and get that designed. And so that'll, that will create a lot more opportunity for people to get out and enjoy biking, hiking, walking, very healthy activities. Not that they can do it now, it's just not as seamless, and it doesn't bring people in from other parts because it dead ends. So we're trying to connect the South and the North. So we're excited about that. And that's to me another piece in the whole quality of life and why you want to be here in Plainville, because it's just a great place to be.
I love it. I believe I have a soft spot for research triangles. I live down in Raleigh, and I've seen what the benefit has been, and just it's continuing to just grow and grow and grow. And then the vision of a community connecting the north and south, and space to walk. My family, we walk every evening, and I love biking. So I think that's incredible. I know once everything is built out from the triangle to the research park, Plainville is going to continue to be branded as, like you said, a place where you can just work, play, live, and enjoy yourself, and especially with the family. So, I mean, Mike, I'll pause here. Is there anything that you want to share before giving out any social media so our listeners can be sure to follow you?
Well, yeah, thank you, Jonathan. It's been just a great opportunity to talk to you. I'm passionate about local government, and if anything else, Plainville's a great place, but working in local government is a great opportunity. There's a career opportunity that I think couldn't be better. So it doesn't have to be here in Connecticut, but if there are young professionals out there looking, there's just so many different degrees that can be applied in local government. So again, I'm always talking about, crushing the stigma of working in local government, because I think people think about manufacturing. They think about, I don't want to be a manufacturer. It's dirty, it's dark, it's dingy, it's messy. It's not that way anymore in terms of really high-tech stuff, and you're pushing computers and things like that. And it's just a mindset. So you get into, serving your community and giving something back is very rewarding, and it can be a great career path for many young professionals that don't realize that there's opportunity there. And like I said, we are looking everywhere, doing whatever we can to send the message out that we're looking for everything. Every position is up, and law enforcement and public safety as well. I didn't mention that, but you name it, it is open. And so, I appreciate the opportunity to send that message, and I continue. I mean, we're on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. The town's on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We just moved to TikTok. We're going to YouTube. There may be Snapchat in our future. I don't know. Maybe Pinterest. I don't know. But we've got a great team. I've been able to build a great team. We're having a lot of fun doing it. And like you said, we're trying to be real. We're trying to be authentic. We're trying to give you honest, straight information whenever we can.
Michael, I appreciate that. And I'm excited to view the journey and continue to follow you guys. I definitely enjoy it. And thank you all. This has been the Jentry Podcast, and Michael T. Paulhus, the town manager of Plainville, Connecticut. Thank you again, Mike. This has been
Thank
a great
you, Jonathan.
one.
It's been a pleasure.
Have a good one.
You too. Thank you, sir.